Hi everybody, it is April and I am in my craft room, and today we're going to make a quilt where we don't measure anything. I went to a retreat this past weekend, and even before I left for my retreat, I was trying to come up with a quick, fun, fat quarter friendly pattern that I could use and that I could share with you that didn't require us measuring anything. And I believe that I've done it. If you look behind me, I'll step out of the way for a moment. That is the quilt that I came up with. I kind of like it. I thought, well, you know what? The best way to teach it is to make another one. Instead of using prints in the middle for my recreation, I thought I might use solids. So I have this solid, I have this fat quarter bundle of solid colors, and I have a Painterly Petals Jelly Roll, and it is by Robert Kaufman. And you can see it's got florals. It almost looks like a Monet or a Manet to me, but I haven't opened it yet. And that is what this pattern calls for. You do not have to have a collection of fat quarters and a jelly roll in order to make this quilt. You can always cut your own. We're starting, we're cheating. I'm cheating, not we, me. I'm cheating. But you do not have to cheat. I did, for the quilt behind me, I used 6 fat quarters and just about an entire roll of jelly strips. It took quite a few jelly roll strips. Let's press these. There are 8 in this collection. I am going to take out 2, and then we will unwrap this baby and see what these flowers really look like. So let's get these opened and get on with this project, because it's supposed to be fast and I'm just slowing us down. There are the fat quarters that I'm going to use. Now let's open this pretty little jelly roll. Need one of those giant knives that people have when they're opening a package. I'd probably hurt myself. So instead, I'll use scissors. And here are the flowers. They're so pretty. The next step is going to be to straighten out the edges on our fat quarter. Now, you know, fat quarters oftentimes do not have straight edges. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold my fat quarter over. I'm going to line it up on a line on my ruler. I'll line up the folded edge. I'm just folding it in half. And then I am going to trim each edge as little as possible so I don't lose any fabric, but I want it to be straight. The next step is very hard. I'm going to pick a strip of fabric from my strips, be they jelly roll or self-cut, and I'm going to attach it to one side of my fat quarter. And I am also going to take another strip, not the same, or it can be the same, totally up to you. You've got a whole stack, about 40 strips. Ooh, I like this one. I changed my mind. I'm going to go with this one. And I'm going to attach it to the side of my fat quarter. Now, I have all of my jelly roll strips picked out. I'm going to go to the sewing me. That was bad. I'm going to go to the sewing machine, sew these boogers on, and I will be right back. I have attached a jelly roll strip, so I've got the extra hanging off. The first thing I want to do is I want to press it, and pressing it can be either finger press. It is totally up to you. Like I said, I blame dye for my need to all of a sudden press things, but you do not have to do that. I'm pretty excited about this project for multiple reasons, and evidently my dog is very excited too. All of my dogs, because they're going to start barking, and this is not the time. One reason that I'm really excited is because of the name that I'm going to call this pattern for this video. Di and Tracy were helping me try and come up with, a really fun name. But in the back of my mind, I knew what I wanted to call it. However, my friend Josh has a shop, and it was the exact name of his shop, which is probably what I thought of, because I think his shop's name is adorable. So I texted Josh and said, can I please borrow the name of your shop for my quilt pattern for my video? And he said, well, of course you can. He's so sweet. So, thank you, Josh, who owns Cut Up and Sew in Palm Coast, Florida, for letting me borrow your name, Cut Up and Sew, for this pattern, because that's exactly what it is. We're going to cut up our fabric and sew it. Another thing that I'm really excited about is the machine that I am using to sew this fabric. It is a Goodwill find. It was $16.99. So enjoy your little preview of my Singer Spartan. And it works. That's another thing. And the Goodwill people said, we'll bring it back if it doesn't work. And it's in a cabinet. And I'll give you a full tour later. But I am using it to make this pattern. I don't remember what the third thing is. Oh yeah, I don't have to measure anything. Yay! So let's get back to it and let me show you what the next step is. So you've got this fat quarter, and it has a jelly roll strip on each side. You also have this tail hanging off your fat quarter. So let's take care of that. Alrighty, so let's turn this guy around, and I'm just going to line up the edge. I'm going to use the line on my ruler and the line of my fabric, and trim. All right. And I will do the same thing to all four corners. We don't have any tails anymore, so that's good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold over my fabric like this. Line it up, so you're going to create a taco, I believe. We'll call that a taco. And then I am going to cut this in half. So I'm just going to lay my ruler down, line it up, and cut the teeny tiniest little bit off the edge. So that's how much I cut off. And now I have two halves. So you want to do this to each fat quarter, and you will end up with 12 fat quarters with a jelly roll strip on one side. And what you're going to do is add a jelly roll strip to the other side. Once you get done with that, and once I get done with that, we'll bring it back to the cutting table. All right, so all of my, and these aren't fat quarters now, I was thinking about that. These are actually fat eighths. Right? Because if you cut a quarter in half, it's an eighth. And my math isn't all that great, so let me know if that's not right. Now, we're going to do something very similar to step 2. So step 1, we make our fat quarters straight, just on the sides. Step 2, we sew a jelly roll strip to both sides. You see, I've got my jelly roll strip on either side of my fat eighth. So before I actually cut it in half, I am going to straighten out either side. And here I've got selvage. So I am going to line it up on the seam where the jelly roll meets the fat eighth. And there, it's all nice and neat and straight. So now is when I fold it over, and I want to make sure that I line up my sewing seams as close as possible. And just like we did on the fat quarter, we are going to cut a little bitty strip from our fat eighth. And I'm going to call this a fat 16th. We are going to add a jelly roll strip to one side. Doesn't matter which side, but only one side. And then I'll come back and show you how we figure out our design. But wait, I almost forgot something. We need to pick out 4 of these that we want to do something special with. So the other 8 I'm going to cut in half. So we'll have 16 fat 16ths, and then I'll show you what we're going to do with these fat 8ths. Now what we're going to do is we are going to create the center portion of our quilt. So I've got 2 pieces, 2 strips, and I am going to, like I said, treat these strips like I was doing bias binding on the bias or a border on the bias. So what I have to do is I need a straight line from this edge to this edge. So that's what I'm going to draw. You're not going to see this because you should actually have stitching, so you can draw it with whatever you want. Okay, I am back. So I have sewn along that edge. Now notice I did not trim off any of my selvage edge. So that way I don't waste anything. So now if I fold this back, here is my diagonal. So you can see here is my diagonal. Now these will be used to form a point in the center of the quilt. Just a little something special, and I am going to cut a 1/4 inch away from my seam, And I'm going to do it carefully because I want to use what is left over. And this will become a block. Yeah. So let me press this. I will add my jelly roll strips to my fat 16ths, and I will be back at the design wall to show you how this all comes together. All right, I have had to use my extra fat quarters because this did not lay out the way that I expected. I put these together the same way. So even if I flip it, I don't get the point. I need one going on the diagonal this way and one going on the diagonal this way. I know I did it this way for both of those, so I get to do it this way for one. Here, I'm going to flip it. I will have my arrow pointing that way. Okay, well, I've got two more, so I might as well use them, right? And I'm going to do the same thing because both of these go the same way. Now I'm going to be very scientific in the way that I choose the fabric strip that is going along one side of my 1/16 block. I have a pile, and I'm just going to pick one of these strips, because when you get to this point in your project, you are going to have quite a few strips left over. So I just pulled them from my pile. I will probably need more. And now I'm going to attach them. No thinking. I don't want to think about it. I just want to do it. Here I have all these blocks that I am going to take over to my pressing area, and I am going to press the additional strip that I have on the side. And then I will bring them back over here and I will trim them. While I was pressing, I noticed something, and I just wanted to show you in case you're new and haven't seen this happen before, or in case you wonder why my blocks are not going to be all the same size. When I spray my faultless spray, watch what happens. The fabric draws up, and that's known to happen when you add moisture to something. I think it's kind of fun when it does that. But this, depending on how much I spray on the different pieces of fabric and how much they draw up, this can cause my different blocks to be different sizes. Now, we're not measuring, so I'm not saying that they may not be different sizes anyway, but I just wanted you to see just a little example of how your fabric can draw up. And I am also, when I have them over here, I am just clipping off the edge a little bit. Let's see if this one does it. Oh yeah. I mean, this whole block went. So I'm going to have some different size blocks in my design. So I've got all of my blocks cut, trimmed, nice and even. And here I have the opportunity to do 2 arrows because I used 8 fat quarters. 1, 2, yeah. Well, 8 fat 8s in order to make this little arrow thing. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to add my blocks around this center and see if I really do want both of these. Or I might decide I just want one. It's kind of a puzzle. So let me add my blocks around. I'm also going to add a couple strips just to simulate what's going to be filling in the area next to these. And then we'll come back and see what we think. I'm pretty certain that I am going to go with these 2 pieces with my arrows pointing up and down. And then I have these arrows, and I did something a little fun. While I was sewing, I connected different small pieces together on the bias and created a big long strip. So on one side of this arrow piece, I added that fun little strip. I also did it to the arrow piece that is on the bottom. So now I've got this, whoa, got my hand, okay. I've got all my center pieces straightened out, and I've added the jelly roll strips to either side of that. So now I've got pink, green, pink, blue, pink, green. I like that much better. Here I've got green, blue, pink, pink. So I've got essentially the same problem over here. So I'm going to switch these out, and I may run into the same issue. So I'm just going to turn these opposite ways. Okay, this is my pink. It's the opposite way. I'm okay with that. Okay, so I just had to move those 2 in order to get... Oh, I do need to move this out though, so that it matches the size. All right. So now I'm going to sew. I'm not going to sew this block. I'm going to sew these blocks together. I'll probably sew all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those and 5 of those together. And I also need to go ahead and sew these together because I know that I'm going to keep them that way. And then we will see what comes next. To recap, here is my center. I have not put the top or the bottom on this. So I've sewn all these blocks together for the left side and all of these blocks together for the right hand side. So I'm going to add 2 more strips across the bottom, and then whatever is extra I can just cut off. So I will be right back after I do that. So on to the next phase. I do have strips that I have sewn on the bias that I want to put on either side of this middle section because I do want it to be a little bit wider. So I'm going to attach those. Then I will add this side to this side, and I will add that side to that side, and then we will have the center of our quilt. we still have these 2 top pieces to add, and I still have leftover blocks. So we should be really close to being done. So as you can see, I'm working on the top portion now. I have the center and the 2 sides together. These are so close. So what I will do is I will cut this jelly roll strip in half, sew it to either side of the inside. Nah, I'm going to put it on the outside, and then whatever's too large, I can just trim off. And my quilt top will be done. Are you trying to find the new thread? While I am putting the finishing touches on my quilt, I would like to send out some thank yous. First of all, there are several people who have kept me in cups of coffee, and I would like to say thank you to them. Thank you, Mary, Tiffany, April, and Shane. And April, we have the same name. I also want to thank Sharon Freeze. Fingers crossed for good test results, and keep quilting. You do beautiful work. I would also like to thank June. June, you're a rock star. I cannot imagine having all that energy and wanting to accomplish so much. I know that you are going to do great things. Thank you for sharing your quilts in email. I also wanted to tell Gail, I think that fabric is perfect for the 3-yard Liberty pattern. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. And a shout out to Joe Zender, who I met at the Busy Lady Quilt Shop. Hey girl, my mother-in-law remembered you. It is such a small world. I enjoyed meeting you, and I hope we run into each other again. My quilt top is complete. It is very, very long. And let me know in the comments whether you like a solid fat quarter with a printed jelly roll, or if you prefer the printed fat quarter with the solid jelly roll. This is just something fun that I wanted to do, and it kind of took on a life of its own. This may or may not be something that you want to do, but I do hope that you enjoyed the video and maybe you picked up a few tips. You know what to do if you liked this video. Have a great day, eat some chocolate, and be kind to everyone. Until next time, bye. Quarter, solid quarter. Now, you don't have to have a pack of jelly rolls. This is not a jelly roll. You a little bit. Another thing that really excites me is the machine that I am using to cut out. Use a machine to cut out my fabric. My camera's gonna die. I'm going to cut my strips like I would. I'm not gonna cut these puzzle size. The size of these puzzle. Thank you for sending me some WhatsApp messages.